But this is not a DCF problem. It's not a Department of Corrections problem. And it's not a treatment problem. It's a system problem.
Right now at 6, a Florida Senate committee tackles the issue of mental health in its jails and prisons, an issue CBS News Miami has reported on for nearly 2 decades and recently gained new attention because of the work of our Jim DeFede. In the CBS News Miami documentary Warehouse, The Life and Death of Tristin Murphy, we explored how the criminal justice system in Florida is failing mentally ill inmates.
Late this afternoon, a Senate committee took up the topic and heard from Miami-Dade Judge Steve Leifman, who you just saw there, and Tristin's mom, Cindy. CBS News Miami's Jim DeFede is live for us in Tallahassee with some of what happened there today. Jim?
Lauren, first, let me tell you that this Senate committee was unprecedented. The idea of the Florida Senate, Republican-controlled, holding a 90-minute hearing on the impact of the mental health in the criminal justice system, on the criminal justice system, has never been done before. So the fact that they held this hearing is a recognition that there is a serious problem there. They heard from the Department of Corrections. They heard from the Department of Children and Families. They heard from Judge Leifman. But obviously, the most powerful testimony they heard came from Cindy Murphy, whose son Tristin, as you noted, was killed. So let's hear some of her testimony today.
There was very poor communication between the Charlotte County Jail and even within the facility. So that needs to be addressed, the lack of communication. We have computers these days. Why are they still handing off inmates with paper forms? I just don't get that. The guard, of course, who was guarding Tristin, had no idea about his mental illness, or he wouldn't have handed him a chainsaw, I'm sure. So within the facilities, there's a breakdown in communications. And I would just encourage all of you to go back and look at, there's several agencies that monitor the prison system and evaluate whether they're doing their job well or not. And I would encourage you to go back as far as maybe 2017 and look at those reports, because even as recent as the August 2023 report, they're not meeting the standards. They're not meeting their contractual agreements, the healthcare provider, and things are not being fixed.
And I can tell you that her testimony was incredibly powerful and emotional, and you could see it on the faces of the senators who were sitting there. Many of them came up after the hearing to give her a hug and to talk to her at greater length. And so, you know, putting a human face on this issue really does have an impact, and that's what Cynthia Murphy did here today.
Yeah, we should point out that Tristin Murphy used that chainsaw to take his own life while he was in state custody. So, Jim, what happens next?
Yeah, so that's of course the big question. And I will tell you that there is a sense of optimism here that we have not seen in years past. Governor Ron DeSantis, as recently as last night, was talking about putting a new emphasis on mental health issues here in the state of Florida. This House Speaker, Paul Renner, listed as one of his priorities on the first day of session, revamping and reworking and remodeling the Baker Act, which helps with mentally ill individuals. Senate President Pasadomo has said very similar things. So there's this sense that there's an opportunity here. There are several bills right now working their way through the legislature. They're not perfect bills, not by any means. There are some shortcomings to them, but they do take an approach of trying to make improvements in a system that desperately needs it. So we're going to obviously stay on top of this. You know, I spoke to Cindy Murphy right after the hearing, and she sort of broke down. We're going to play some of that sound for you, you know, at 7 and 11 tonight. But it was really powerful to see her here. She met with a lot of legislators, and they all really sat with her for lengthy periods of time to listen to the story, and they were all shocked by it, because I think in a lot of ways legislators are ignorant as to what's really going on behind the scenes.
Yeah, her message is so important. Good that her voice is being heard. Jim, thank you. And Jim, will have more on what happened in Tallahassee this week coming up on Facing South Florida. It airs Sunday at 11:30 a.m. here on CBS Miami. And you can see Warehoused, The Life and Death of Tristin Murphy by going to cbsmiami.com.